Oh my God, I got my own journal. I'm so excited. I'm so proud of myself with the help of my virtual assistant. So, journaling is great for you. It has great benefits. It reduces stress. It can help keep your memory sharp. And I just love journaling. I have used this setup for about 5 years. And it's just the three things that are important to you, what you're grateful for, something that you're proud of, something that you dream of, and something that you pray for. So simple but efficient. So if you like it, you can find it on Amazon. I will put the link in the show notes. So hope you enjoy this episode. Hello, welcome to Life with Francy podcast, a place where you will find all kinds of conversation like mental health, self-love, self-care, trauma, hobbies, and more. With this podcast, I want to create a place where we support one another in business and personal life. Hope you enjoy this episode. Now, let's get the show started. On today's episode, I have the pleasure to talk to Craig Thorn, an experienced social media and digital marketer, entrepreneur, and content creator, bringing his decade-plus experience to brands in North America. This amazing conversation was possible thanks to Podmatch, a great community full of tools and resources for podcast hosts and podcast guests. You can find access to this amazing community as well as my guest information in the show notes. Now, let's welcome Craig Thorn to the show. Tell us, what is life with you?
Great to meet you, first of all. Thank you so much. Interesting. So when you positioned that earlier, I was like, well, I find the business side a little more interesting personally. So I'm from Australia. I live in Canada. And I moved here almost 13 years ago. And I've been doing, whilst this is my main thing, but it's probably, I think, the least thing I'm least passionate about, I guess, in the scheme of things. My girlfriend and I have a social media agency. I've been doing social media professionally since about 2007. So before it was like a big thing, where like before Twitter I worked for a film distributor in Melbourne. And I remember taking the pictures of the red carpet for Ashton Kutcher's film Killers with my like iPhone 3GS, and you take the photos and then you have to upload it to an app called TwitPic because Twitter didn't have photos at the time. So like, I've been doing this quite a long time. So we started an agency in 2015 after we both worked in social for a while. It made more sense to combine our powers, which is cool. We've worked with some really big clients, including Meta, Sony, NBA. So we're pretty happy with the way that's all gone. And we also have the YouTube channel where we educate people, which on top of working with clients, we're able to sort of share the tips, which is really cool. And it, helps with business too, because, there's more revenue streams that come from that, but also you're helping people in real time. And it's given us an element of joy that we never anticipated. So that's the main thing. And the other things that I do as far as like the things I'm passionate about, I have a craft beer podcast. So whilst I couldn't get the camera going for some reason with Zoom, but we have a nice little set. We're one of the first craft beer podcasts in Canada. We started 8.5 years ago, and there was hardly any of us. There was one or two before us, I believe. It's really cool. Get to meet a bunch of people. We were pre-COVID, we were traveling a lot and interviewing in person, and now we do it all this way. We do it via digitally, which is better. I like it better because you can still visit places, but get more people on from different regions, which is cool. And tried beer from all over the world, and it's been fascinating to get to know the people behind the product. And we also have a non-profit for craft beer where we want to help BIPOC individuals get involved, because most people in craft beer are just white dudes with beards. They all look like me, and that's not feasible for the industry to survive in the long term. Plus, beer is for everyone. Beer was created by Black women in Africa like thousands of years ago, so it's not a white dude with beard thing. It's just maybe a lack of understanding of what craft beer is. So we give scholarships for like a beer sommelier. It's called Cicero. And also we just launched a brewing school program, like a big scholarship for that too. Not this program, but we launched a scholarship to help people get through school and to encourage people to get in the industry. And the last thing I do is music. My brother and I have been making hip hop music for 21 years, 2002. Yeah, long time. And we moved to Canada. We had a little record deal. So we've been putting out a bunch of music forever and touring and videos and all that fun stuff. So I would say that is primarily my life. And now I've been with my girlfriend for 12 years, and we got a dog last year, which is amazing. And life is good.
That's crazy. So yeah, how did you get into craft beer and then mix it up with a podcast as well? I like that. That's
Yeah.
unique.
It's definitely different. When I first moved to Canada, I tried beers in Australia. I was drinking, but not like a ton. I just always try interesting stuff because I thought it was interesting just to not have the same old thing. And when I first moved here, it was my first Canadian winter, and I don't know what it's like in Kansas, but up here it gets very cold, like minus 30s Celsius in the winter,
Mm.
which is not a lot of fun. So I was my first winter, and my friends in Australia started this like Facebook group called 365 Days of Beer, and you had to take a selfie of yourself with a can, bottle, or labeled glass, drinking a beer, and then number it and try to get to 365 in a year. And I was like, well, clearly there isn't 300 beers in the world, so sure, let's do it. I'll learn something about beer, and it'll be a fun thing to do. And my housemate at the time joined me, and I did the 365 in like 7 months. And I was like, oh, okay. And I just enjoyed it so much. I just kept going. And I'm up to 7,600 and something now. So I just kept it going since 2011. And then people kept telling me I should write a book with my reviews. I know nothing about beer. Like, I'm not educated on it, but my reviews were just silly, like swearing and just being fun about it because I didn't know. So I'm just like, whatever. So people were like, oh, you should write a book. I don't want to write a book with these silly things. So my girlfriend suggested to start listening to beer podcasts, and I couldn't find any like that spoke to my sort of demographic, like younger, 30s people that are into beer. Like it was always like older dudes that were just super boring. So she says, why don't you start a podcast? Because been doing music. I'm used to talking to people. We did interviews forever. So I used to be a music journalist like 20 plus years ago. So I'm used to being on both sides of the convo. So like, cool. We just started it completely. Had no idea that even like this thing would be something that people would want to listen to. So we just kept going. And then breweries started asking. It was a friend of mine when I lived in Montreal and he lived in Toronto. So that's like, 6 hours drive, 5-6 hours drive. So he would come up and we would bulk record a bunch of them. And then after maybe a year, yeah, breweries started reaching out, wanting to be on. We're like, huh, okay. And we just kept it going. And then 8.5 years later, we'd worked with tourism officers from states like Virginia, Vermont, Colorado, had all like sent us out there to cover the brewery scene. But we've also traveled off our own, New York, California, Australia, all different places to Florida to sort of, really just discover the beer and talk to people and stuff. So it just kept going. It's one of those things that, you just sort of like it. People seem to like it. And then now I feel like it's been so long that we're established and we've sort of like a nice archive or library of conversations and stories behind beer. And there's a passionate fan base for beer, which is interesting. You never would have thought that.
That's pretty cool.
Yeah. Have you had, are you into beer at all? Have you tried any or many?
No, I am more
Huh?
well, it was funny because okay, it's not funny with in my family, there's a lot of people that drink that have a problem and people that drink that don't have a problem.
Gotcha.
So one advice of a person that has a problem with alcohol was like, if you want to drink, like drink the high liquor because it's hard to be an alcoholic when you're having like $20 for a shot of something. And it was funny because his
Good
daughter
advice.
drinks beer, but I'm the one that drinks the high liquor. So yeah, for me it's like rum chata, which is like a bottle like this, and you get like 3 drinks for like $25.
Right. So it's a different vibe. Hey, that's smart. And I guess you could put beer into that too, because craft beer is not cheap. It's not like in a Budweiser that's a couple, $2-3 like a can. It's like, some of the bottles of beer I paid like $50-$60 like for a bottle and stuff. And it's not cheap at all. So that would be another way to use that plug. I like it. That's really smart.
I like that. I like that
Yeah.
though. I don't know much about beer, but I like your vibe as I was reading your profile, because you have like the music, the craft beer, and music and business
Oh,
side, of
the business stuff.
course.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
yeah, which one is like your favorite?
That's a good question. The interesting thing is they all mesh really well together. So like we've got beer clients in our agency because of the beer podcast, and I use my song is the theme song to the podcast, and that springboarded another separate music podcast with my brother. So it was like My favorite is probably the beer, I would say, because music I'm jaded about. When I started, it was nobody was rap, no one was making. Wasn't many artists, and then now every single human ever is making music, and it's impossible to break through. Like it's if you didn't do it 15 years ago, then it's not happening. So it's like just now, if we're going to be making music, it's literally just because we want to do it and not actually trying to achieve anything anymore, which is somewhat of relief. Whereas like the business is great, little stressful, clients, you know how it goes. So beer is the most chill, and I get to just have these long form. Our podcast is usually minimum 2 hours. We've gone up to 5 hours before for one pod. You get to drink beer with people who made it, and you get these fascinating stories. So I just love podcasting. I think it's amazing. It's the best media in my opinion. That mixed with YouTube.
Right. And that's
Yeah.
why I love it, because they always say like pick your niche and blah, 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 blah. But like as a human, like you love so many things and why not incorporate them? I love that. I wish I could create my own song for the podcast,
Well, you could.
But
No one,
that's what I'm
you know,
saying, for me it's like the journal. So now I got my journal, my first
right.
journal out, but I have more journals in my brain that my virtual assistant have to design. But I'm using the podcast, because I get to talk to amazing people like you're in Australia. Like, oh my God, that's like so freaking cool. Like the time difference and all that stuff. And you going after your dreams in your own way and using different platforms to get to your mission. So yeah, I love that. And podcasting, oh my gosh, I can talk about podcasting for
Yeah.
forever because I use it for that, to build a
Mm,
network, build a
smart.
community, and then promote others as well as I'm promoting myself, just having a cool conversation, laid back. Hey, how you doing? What's your life
Yeah.
about?
I love that. And I love with the journal, you mentioned that you've got the gratitude things in there. My partner, my girlfriend and I, we meditate every day, and we always do abundance and manifestation and gratitude meditations, usually flicking between. So I think that like writing that down, there's different ways to express the gratitude, but I think gratitude is probably the most important thing, whether it's like striving for more, which we all are at all times, and you're excited for what that is. But at the same token, you got to look around, be like, man, look at all the things we have, not just physical things, but the people and health and all this stuff. So I love that's a real positive product to put out into the world that helps people. I think it's fantastic.
Thank you, thank you. And yeah, some people feel overwhelmed about the gratitude part, and they say, "Hey, successful people, they all have a gratitude journal in
Everyone.
some way or some out how." So for me, it's just a little space to not give you too much overwhelm,
Like
of
pressure.
thinking more
Yeah.
than one. Yeah, just one thing. And
Be anything.
for me is the one proud of. Do you have well, they say, I don't know, not all men, but like they say it's like easier for men to brag about themselves than it is for women. So that's why
Hmm.
I added the I am proud of, because I'm still working on it. That one is still, I have had that set up for 5 or 6 years, but the I'm proud of, celebrate yourself. Doesn't
Yeah.
come easily.
No, no, that's probably fair because women have had a very, have had a pretty rough as far as society, like weren't allowed to vote until last century, which is insane when you think about it. So yeah, I can imagine probably for that reason, like women have been pushed down for so long, that is probably is more difficult. But it's just something that being proud of. There's nothing wrong with being proud of. There's a difference between bragging and just saying, "Hey man, I'm really proud of this." It's two different things. And you can, I think probably one of the big problems that we always like achieve stuff and then you just cool and then keep going. I think a lot of people don't celebrate, like me definitely included. We don't. You try to, but you just don't. I don't know, you because you're thinking of the next thing. And I think that's usually, particularly if you're in like business world and stuff, because you're just looking at the next thing, and sometimes you got to force yourself to just hang on a sec. And having something like that can work for people. Some people, that's what that forces them into doing it. And because that whole ritual would take 5 minutes every day, it's not like a big time drainer. It's just makes, whether it's at the end of the day or the beginning of the day, to like
Mhm.
to do that and just to think about something that you're proud of. Because I'm sure we all do, and we just don't. You don't think if maybe people think, you see social media and you're thinking like, oh, unless I've made $30 million, I shouldn't be proud or whatever. But no, like if you did something great today, whatever that might be, if you taught your dog a new trick or something, like, you know, that's something to be proud of. And you just got to like remember that the small things matter.
I know, and that's what I'm trying. I hope that I can get that message out there. It's all about the little things that make the big steps, for a
Yes.
better life that you will like. And on the talk of our accomplishments and working on so many different projects, talk about some of your challenges with any of your projects.
Yes. So say business, to start with that one. Obviously, if anyone has ever worked with clients, when you have multiple clients and your own business, you think you're your own boss, but really you have multiple bosses that you have to please. Clients can be quite challenging, particularly in like, because I've worked in social media so long. One of the big challenges there is getting people to understand the value. Like, imagine trying to convince a 50-year-old corporate person in 2007 that, hey, you need to pay me to take care of your Facebook and Twitter. Like, they just, wouldn't have really understood that. Like that actually will mean something one day. And I think it took up it, we were still having those struggles up until probably COVID. And fortunately for us, like, we were very well positioned having an online business. And then as soon as everything was shut down, like here in Canada, everything was shut down for a long time, and some of the more hectic lockdowns in the world. So then if all the physical presence is stopped, where no one's really outside, so there's no billboards, you're not walking past shops and stuff, so how do people get their message out? And then that leaves online. So we're well positioned as far as that. So I feel like there's a better understanding of it now compared to a while ago. So that's always been a challenge. And I guess it's like finding time to balance everything, because you don't want to just be working all the time, which is cool, but because it's my partner and both of us, it's very easy to not take any time for yourself. So we try and like balance it out. I try and keep, when we do the beer podcast, because it's drinking, we do them in the evening. We try and keep them to like Thursday nights, maybe sometimes Fridays, and so it doesn't take over, never really takes over your life, but you want to actually have some sort of weekend as well. So we never do it on the weekend. So just trying to keep everything balanced. And even with this, you mentioned the alcohol thing, like craft beer sometimes could be a shield for someone who has a problem with alcohol, and which is completely known in the community. And there's a bunch of people talking about balance, of course, which is super key. So what I've been doing, I have strict drinking nights where I drink, because obviously you have the podcast, we have social media presence, we have the YouTube. So brands would send us product a lot that we are required, not required, but the idea is to pour them, drink them, post about it, all that type of stuff. So you just end up drinking more, and then you end up buying the new stuff because you're interested, or you're trading beer with somebody, and all of a sudden now in the other room here I've got hundreds and hundreds of beers, like that I've just collected over the years. Like, some of them are dead, some of them can sit for years, like in a cellar type of situation. So try to regulate the drinking and keep it to a point where, like, I'm not drinking to get lit like you do, but
Yeah.
that's not the intention. The intention is to try the different stuff and think about the product, and I reviewed them all and write about them and whatever. So I found a way that worked for me over COVID. Instead of just drinking until I felt like I was going to get a cold or something, I have strict nights of the week where I drink, and that I've been the healthiest that I've been in years because of that. So yeah, definitely a number of challenges with all of these things.
I love that, and I love that awareness, and it's just self-aware of where you at in life, because everything with a balance. For my family, I have lost 3 family members to alcohol, so I
Wow.
sure respect alcohols, because I know that I'm more susceptible than other people.
Gotcha.
So for me, like, I barely drink because I work outside. So if you're in 100-degree weather, you're not gonna drink and be like, yeah, and the next day you're just going to work 12 hours in 100-degree weather. So my job has helped me to drink less. But if, like,
Okay.
I'm really feeling sad or angry or whatever feeling, if I'm trying to numb it, I know that's the time to stay away from any type of alcohol. So I love that. It's just self-aware and where you at. Everything with a balance, you can enjoy life. And I love that. It seems like you're having your best life.
I've managed to figure it out. You're right. You're 100%. You have to know how you react to stuff and just adjust it as you see fit. Even things like now, a lot of breweries are making non-alcoholic beer. So say if like you've got 3 nights a week that you don't drink, but you kind of like, oh, I'd like something. It's almost like smoking a vape to quit smoking. Whereas like you got the can of beer, the ritual with opening it, pouring it into a glass, it smells very similar, it tastes very similar. So you're getting the experience without the alcohol. So really it's just calories, but
Yeah.
still there's like that's been one way to mitigate going from drinking a lot to sort of not, and having these sort of more interesting, and it's not always non-alcoholic beers. A lot of them make these fun hop waters. So they take hops, which is one of the main ingredients of beer, and you can infuse the oils with water. So it's got a lot of the flavors of the hops just with sparkling water. So like completely zero alc. So excuse me. Yeah, there's been like a lot of interesting ways to make it work. And like I know a lot of my friends are doing the same thing, and a lot of people that I speak to in the scene are kind of like regulating what they drink. Like I don't even work in beer and I have to drink a lot. So imagine if you're in a brewery and you got to taste it every day to test it. To, oh, it's coming along okay. And I couldn't imagine if I was them. I feel like I really wouldn't be drinking much. So there'd be a lot. So yeah, figured it out from this side.
I love that. Thank you so much for coming in on the show. Is there anything else that you would like my listeners to know about you or your business or your podcast?
Well, if you are interested in craft beer, definitely would encourage you to check it out. There's some fantastic stories that people will tell. Like even if you're just interested in the business side, because I have a business, I always get into those questions. I love talking about that. So it's called like the thing here, BAOS podcast. So it's at BAOS podcast everywhere, YouTube as well, so you can see those. And if also, obviously, I would say anyone listening is almost guaranteed to be on social media. If they're listening or watching, they would have a smartphone. So our company's called High Season Co, and that's what it is. High HIGH Season Co. Everywhere, and particularly on YouTube. So we give tips primarily about Instagram because that's what people want. But we talk about YouTube, we talk about a few other things. So just if you're looking at ads, things like that. So if you're looking to just maybe get more of an understanding, we do this in real life. There's a lot of people on YouTube who talk about social, and I find that a lot of them are inaccurate because they only do it for themselves. Like we do it for massive brands. So I don't think there's anyone else like us talking there, which is hopefully that, if I'm not mistaken. So I feel like we give actionable tips that you can actually go ahead and use immediately what we just said. So it's not like this sort of fluff to get you to click. Like it's real tips. So yeah, if you're interested in those two, go check that out.
Awesome. Yeah, I'll make sure that I have all your links and everything on the show notes. And yeah, thank you so much for coming and having this interesting conversation with us.
Thank you so much for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Alrighty. Well, thank you so much for listening to another episode. You can find my podcast on all major platforms like Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and my YouTube channel. You know the drill. Like and subscribe. Hope you have a blessed day. Bye-bye.